What is it?
It's time to go back.
So 2 years later and at least 1 year smarter, let's take another crack at this. The good thing is we don't have to start from the beginning because I already made 2 whip swords, which are right here above good old Severin. This one's my first whip sword after my own design, and this is the second one that I made after the whip katana from Wild Hearts. Both of them pretty much got the same sandwich construction, meaning that the base blade body of this is doubled with a connection piece in between. In the first video I mentioned 4 problems, which I still think these segment connectors are the best solution for that. Don't you ever comment about bicycle chains ever again. Now the difference with the new version will be that instead of doubling the base body, which takes up a lot of space and also a lot of mass, making it very heavy, I'll be doubling the connection links, which are a lot smaller, so hopefully less overall weight.
You're ruining my moment, really.
And my plan for that looks like this. This is the prototype made with my laser cutter. Hopefully this way it'll be a lot lighter and also less thick, because when it comes to cutting ability, thickness is actually a very important factor, which made those more kind of axes than swords. Alright, let's see if this works. I'm really contemplating whether I should change the design a little bit. There's so much guiding rail on the left and right. There's a lot of room for error, obviously, especially when welding such thin pieces of metal. They are very prone to bending, which you can very dramatically see on these pieces. In order to hold them in place, I think I only need like the top right here and the bottom. Ooh, I think I've got a good idea. This was the test welding piece I did, just to show you how it's supposed to connect. Even the better weld I did still has a very, very big gap. Even though it has that big gap, you can see this is tightly in there. It has the connection point right here, but this one isn't as important because this one is important. And you can see it's pretty difficult to get a nice fit on these. If I segment the guiding rail, a lot less material, which means less weight, pretty clean, and it's a lot less work for me. So we're going with the new version. I've been very unhappy with the fitment of this zigzag thing right here, giving me a lot of headaches. And then once I've had like these 2 pieces done, the fitment is not very smooth. So I thought maybe I'd save myself some time down the road and just redesign the thing again with something that's simpler, hopefully easier to make, more room for error, right? So let's have a look at the third iteration. Biggest change probably, you can see I got rid of the pickaxe tip segment. I changed it to have a regular point, and I also added a taper to the blade. Tapers down to roughly 20 millimeter and it's 60 millimeters at the crossguard. It used to be 40 millimeters all the way, but one big problem with the first whip sword was the segments are pretty heavy and they're all pretty much the same strength. So the ones at the back have to support a lot more weight than the ones at the front. By adding the taper, I can have bigger segment connectors towards the hilt. Another thing you can see, I changed the orientation of the segments, but the reason for that was if you look at the way 2 segments connect into each other, the unsharpened segment connectors were covering up a lot of sharp blade segment, which left a lot of unsharpened area when the sword will inevitably wrap around something. With the changed version, there's a lot of blade edge exposed when it's wrapping around, and even without the pickaxe tip, you can see that each of these segments is pretty much like a pickaxe itself, because these sharp corners will dig into the skin or, I don't know, shield, whatever it comes in contact with. As you can see, we came out at around 80 centimeters. So in sword form, it'll be at the lower end of a long sword. Now another step that took a lot of time with this design was filing out the slot for the segment connectors to ride in. With the new design, now I will just cut all the way through here, because looking at this you can see it doesn't actually need the end of the channel right here, because the segment links just bump into each other, limiting how far it can go into each other. Alrighty, so far so good. You can see I still need to adjust some of the angles before we can move on with welding on the segment links. So this one looks pretty good, but here we've got some big gaps. Okay, much better. Still not perfect, but there's only so much I can do without machining anything. Not all the way straight, but let's see what I can do once everything is welded together and I got it hardened, and then I'll reprofile the blade. Almost forgot, I need to add something that I can attach the wire onto at the tip segment. Cut out the recess right here, and then at the end I can put a pin through here, and then we can tie a knot onto that. So let's put this here. These are for the tip segment, so let's weld them on there and see if it works. Clamped it down so that I've got it as tightly to the segment as possible, and also put some round stock in there so that I've got it centered with the next segment. And now I guess we just pray that the whole thing doesn't warp into oblivion. Looking good so far. Don't see any warping at all, so I think clamping down really does the job. Very nice, I gotta say, turned out better than expected. As you can see, everything's nice and straight, which is important, so there's as little wiggle room as possible, so the whole thing will be looking somewhat sturdy. I gotta say, more straightforward than I thought. Seems like I simply have to weld on the rest of them. Shouldn't be too difficult, right?
Oh, come on.
Aww. No! Ah, crap.
Shouldn't be too difficult, right?
Now it needs to be very smooth, because I only got around like 3 kilograms of pull force on the spring at the end. So it has to move in there without any resistance. Got most of the segments done. Nice. Even without having anything that's pulling the segments tightly together, we've got very little flex, which is very nice. It'll even be a little bit less once I'm done with the segments, because these will pinch together. I want to say we're somewhat straight, and then we got a little bit of wiggle room. Yeah, but I mean, not to get too high on Copion, but it's a whipsaw, so I don't know what you guys are expecting. Next step could possibly be putting the pins in there. Welding the segments was already pretty tedious work, and I don't really want to keep on the tedious work right now. Believe it or not, my patience is not infinite, so I actually like to see some progress on my work as well. So I think we should start doing the crossguard. Actually, hold on a second, I just noticed that I can't do the crossguard yet, because I have to do the handle first. Also just noticed that I've never done a crossguard for a sword before. To illustrate what I'm talking about, let's have a look at this dagger. I have to do the handle first, because I need to know how thick the handle will be, so that I know how thick this part right here on the crossguard has to be, so that there won't be like a huge gap, and then suddenly, to accentuate it, it protrudes out here like this. Would probably look a little bit goofy. So let's actually try and make the handle first. Now for the most important thing about a whip sword, the retraction system. Just to do a short summary, the first one, this one was self-retracting, and it got the retraction mechanism in here inside the handle, and it basically worked like a tape measure would, where you've got a constant force spring in there. The tape that's coming out actually rolls up in there, so it looks somewhat like this. Problem with this was the spring has to loop inside of the handle, which created a lot of friction and contact points, and it was a very bulky build, and it didn't really manage to fully retract the thing tightly. So that's something we got to keep in mind. The second one got no self-retraction mechanism. There's just a string in here that's attached to the first segment, which I have to pull by hand. And then I've got a ratchet to tighten the rest down so the segments sit very tightly together. But honestly, the self-retraction mechanism is way cooler. So we're going with that again, and also have a listen to this.
Let me retract this real quick.
So how are we going to do it this time? This time we're using the springs we all know and love. The spiral one. So something important to note about these springs, they are not constant force springs, which means pulling this, the first bit, is easier than pulling the last bit. And there's also a maximum extension range, which means if I pull it too far, it won't retract fully flush because we broke the spring. The problem with these springs is they are very big for how much you can actually pull them apart, which means they are not really suited for retracting roughly 60 to 70 centimeters while being hidden inside of a handle. So the solution for a problem is a pulley system.
Let's do a little physics recap on pulleys. Class is in session. Yes, Hans, I already know how a pulley works. I don't care, we're doing a recap. Say you've got a weight you need to lift. Lifting it straight up is pretty tedious, so attach a rope to your weight, add a wheel to the ceiling, and now you can pull the rope to lift the weight. Nothing about the force needed changed, just the direction in which you apply it. We're ignoring friction in this example. If we add another wheel, the magic happens. 2 wheels means that the force needed to lift the weight is halved, but the distance we need to pull is doubled. If we add another wheel, the distance is tripled and the force to lift is a third. So the number of wheels is the multiplier for the pull length and at the same time the divisor for the force needed. For example, if we got 5 wheels and we want to lift the weight of 100 kg 1 meter high, we need to pull with 20 kilograms of force for 5 meters. I know force is measured in Newton, not kilogram. This is an example. Usually, pulleys are used to pull something, who would have thought, and the added pull length is the compromise for the force advantage. In case of the whipsaw, we don't care about lifting something. We want the pull length. So in our case, the weight will be the spring and the rope runs through the blade segments and attaches at the tip segment. If we add 6 wheels, we're able to get 60 centimeters of extension range by just lifting the spring 10 centimeters, which means we get a small mechanism with lots of extension.
Which hopefully is plenty enough for our sword. Now this particular spring has a force of roughly 30 kilogram, which means with the 6 rollers, we've got a force of roughly 5 kilogram. And you can see, even with this bulky wooden construction, we still got something that's somewhat close to a normal sword handle. Let's get to making this out of metal. I think the next best step is to weld this pin on here that the spring will be attached to. Okay, just threw everything in there to get an idea how much space and gaps is left. But so far, looks pretty good. You can see pulling works better because as soon as I let go, you can see it binds up because it's twisting that way. So you can really tell we need the second washer on this side as well. All right, so far so good. It's still in some spots it's still a little bit binding, but I just have to work it in a little bit more. I've been thinking about all sorts of mechanisms that somehow grab the rope tightly so I can lock it down in the extended position and it won't self-retract. This Dyneema rope is pretty slick, so it's very difficult to create a sort of friction lock. But while talking about it with my father, he actually said that I could also think about locking down the spring itself, which is a great idea because you can see I left these extra long, and now when it's in the extended position, I can engage a sort of lock right here. It holds it in the forward position, and then I can just disengage and it's self-retracting again. Maybe we can also put something right here, basically lock in the other direction so the sword mode is stiffer as well. Now a cool thing with pulleys is if you look closely at how much rope is being moved over the wheels, you can see the ones further to the right are moving faster than the ones on the left. Which means we also got a mechanical advantage when holding this side of the pin in comparison to this side. So let me just... So here we've got 6.1, 5.1. So the locking mechanism on this side will be much easier than having it on this side. When I pull this, the right side is trying to tilt slightly bit more in this direction. This side goes that direction, especially when I retract it. So I think if I were to do the lock on just one side, I'm going to do it on this side, because if I put it on this side, it'll bend even further. If I put it on this side, hopefully I can take some stress out of the system, and it'll hopefully last longer. I did a lot more measurements, putting it right here, always in the same spot, and the readings are all over the place. So I have no idea if that's actually true with the mechanical advantage. Maybe let me know in the comments if that's a thing with this. I'm going to put the lock on this side, and then yeah, we just hope for the best, I guess. Okay, I'm no spring maker, so no idea if this is too thick, but I guess we'll just have to find out. But one thing I have to add before hardening this, to disengage, I think it would be nice to have sort of platform for your thumb to push it down, so let's weld something on here. Okay, let's see if I can get this on there somehow without melting anything. Ah, no. I mean, it started so promising, and yeah, this happened. Okay, it's now hard but very brittle. I have to temper it so it'll be less hard but more springy. Let's see if it's a spring or not. Pretty good. Not too much resistance. Moment of truth, you can see the lock right there. So if I push further, it pushes it out of the way. Okay, another one for good measure. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Looks a bit like the world's smallest putter. Nice. Next step, welding it on there. Crappy weld. I really hope that it hasn't moved too far up here. I think it slipped a little. Let's see if it'll still engage. And yeah, okay. I guess it was a little bit too hot. Let's see if it works. Please, please, please. Nice. Nice. Lock is working pretty good. Who would have thought? This crappy looking dingsbooms is working pretty well. I wish I would have filmed this, because I was testing the locking mechanism some more with a comical ping. This thing just snapped off. I probably overheated it while welding because it broke off right at the weld seam. So I guess I can try to weld it on there again. Oh, the baby's crying. False alarm, back to sleep. Okay, got it working again. So by accident, you can see when engaging, it doesn't push this down, but it's pushing it outwards like this, and it still engages, which actually is a much better way of engaging the lock. It'll probably be less likely to break with this little movement. So maybe I should get rid of this thing and, you know, add like a ring or something, so I can push my thumb in here and then pull it outwards. Okay, I think this should be about as small as I can get with the whole mechanism. Obviously don't want all of this exposed, so I think next step should be weld on some stabilizing brackets, and then let's see about a handle wrap. Right now I'm testing how to do the handles so that this channel will be unobstructed while also having something tight to grip onto. Thinking about doing these pieces a little bit oversized, so we've got some overhang right here, and then once I wrap leather around it, it'll basically create a little gap in here that's still enough room for the rail system to work. I guess I have to make it a little bit bigger than this. Here's why it's important that there isn't any slack when it's fully retracted, because if I just let go of the string, it pretty much unravels the whole thing. And if I pull again, there's always something messed up. You can see this goes between the bearings. It'll mess up the whole system. See, with the whole thing tied to something, you can see if I now engage the brakes and then press the button, everything is still in place. I've got a new solution for the handle thing. So I'm putting this channel right here over there to cover this. It'll still be very small, and this limits, because it's sitting in there, it can't rotate anymore, so it'll just go straight forward and back, hopefully. But I have to be very careful to weld this on there straight, so right now you can see it's moving a little bit from side to side, which I don't want, because that would mean that it'll get wedged somewhere. Now I know this is just a prototype, but I just can't help myself. I think a little decoration is always in order. This past week I've been pretty much for the whole time wrestling with the handle. Ach, komm schon! Meine Fresse! Was soll denn dieser Sch... This isn't the first cover I made for that. I already had this done and I only spot welded on there. Warum? Warum hängt das jetzt hier dran? I don't know, something like moved a little bit, or maybe I welded it too deeply, so the weld root went through there. Hey komm, das ist doch ein ganz schlechter Shot. Anyways, it got caught up and I had to remove the whole thing, and even though it was only spot welded, I had to, you know, kind of... Wo hakst du, Junge? Komm mir nicht so. So it wasn't usable anymore. Dieser kleine Scheißpopel hier hält mich jetzt davon ab. So I just made a second cover for that thing. Ich raste aus. So, was ist jetzt hier schon wieder das Problem? Okay. A few days passed, I had some time to cool off, and I reconsidered the whole approach with the housing for this, at least with the channel to prevent this thing from rotating. I did a couple tests, I just went back and forth very many times. Doesn't really move that much. Maybe there was some debris in there that because of the friction it kept rotating, but right now I feel like trying to add the channel just adds more problems than it solves. So I'll just leave it off for now and hopefully it doesn't jam up, I guess. Now the handle is probably a few millimeters wider than I wanted it to, but honestly I'd rather have it a little bit bigger than you know, wasting even more time trying to fit this up. Alrighty, so far so good. This is where we are. 5, 6, 7 pieces on there. There will be another one. This one will be fitted into the piece that's connected to the crossguard. This one will be slightly different, so I'll do it at the very end. We've got a slight little curve to it, but I heard that many men have that. If it's too noticeable in the finished piece, I'll just act like I want that and I'll put like a curved handle on it. So remember when I said I wasn't going to decorate the prototype? Well, I lied. So yeah. Okay. pretty good. But you know what? I convinced myself that this is very important for the thumbnail, so yeah, definitely necessary. At this point I might as well add some color as well. Usually not a big fan of paint. I usually like to achieve the color some other way, like I did with the Switch Axe, for instance. The blue is very dull. For the Thunder Hammer I opted with a metal paint. I think the blue looks pretty nice, but let's have a look at the brass finish. So you can see this is a brass paint that I sprayed on there. This looks very sort of matte finish. And this has the shiny metal finish that you would expect from brass. And this is hot brushed on there. So let's add a little bit of gold, shall we? By applying a little bit of heat and then brushing on with a solid brass brush. Basically deposits small little pieces of brass on there and the heat helps with adhesion. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but it works like this. Oh yeah, this turned out nice. Gives this very metallic sheen. You can also still see all of these tiny little surface blemishes from the steel finish, so it looks much more natural than just a painted on layer. I moved it. Okay, definitely not my best welding job, but the sad truth is probably this is also not my worst welding job, so yeah. I started building the pommel. Last thing I have to do is weld this piece on there. Whoa. Okay, so this way around. Oh wow! Oh wait. Okay, just this one little detail. I'm not sure if this will be visible once I'm done with welding, but I swear this is necessary. I think I could fit some more on there. Never done this before. I think this is pretty thick for a handle wrap. I want it to be a little bit harder so the handle doesn't feel squishy necessarily. Oh. Oh, I mean it does add like 6mm handle thickness. Maybe once I water form it on there it'll be better. But because I don't want to rust everything up, let's put on some Frischhaltefolie. Okay. I gotta say right now, can already tell I'm not a big fan. Yeah, no, this is way too big. Let me get some thinner leather. This isn't really working. Got something a little bit thinner. This used to be one of those great old reeking Tonkasten. There probably have been thousands of sweaty asses going over this piece of leather. Better wash it off, right? Oh, this is also so clunky. This, I mean, no, I hate this. I hate this. Stupid ass mosquito. This feels weird, but it looks a lot better. Last night in my dream, a beautiful and elegant solution appeared to me. What? I never said it's this one, but the tape holds the sheet metal in place, everything feels solid. Once I got the leather wrap glued around there, it should be plenty strong to not move out of the way while using it. Alrighty, got the last pieces ready for assembly, the last segment. So I was thinking about doing a test run, basically attaching the blade before hardening, because heat treating is honestly the most difficult part of these builds. I've got very thin segments, I've got very thick segments, and they obviously heat and cool down at different rates, which can create a lot of stress. My idea was to harden it now, and then once it's hardened, hopefully it'll stay just as it is. And then I can just tilt this out of the way, put a little slot in here so the cable can run through there and into the next segment. With the last segment, there's a problem because I want this to just extend rather than being able to tilt left and right. That way the whip part of the sword is a little bit further away from my hand. I don't know if it'll make a big difference, but I still wanted to give it a try because, you know what, maybe I can let you in on a little secret. I've really been thinking about doing like, not really whip sword, but maybe like an extendo sword. Can't tilt anymore. That way in the extended version, it'll still have some rigidity to cut while it's extended. You can imagine this just slaps on something and then whatever momentum it carries is the only thing that's really cutting. Imagine like a huge, maybe Zweihander that's extending. Could be a cool idea, but who would want to see that? Back to this, since I can't tilt these out of the way, I have no way of cutting this slot once it's hardened and once this is attached on there. I guess I can't hold it off any longer. Time to heat treat this. Put some wire around it so I've got everything nice and tight. You can see the slight green shine. Put something on there that basically prevents the oxygen from reaching the steel. At least it helps, especially on the inside of this. I don't want to have any scale build up because that could probably clog up the mechanism. Okay, now while the forge is heating up, I have to solve another issue. This is a lot bigger than the biggest thing I've previously quenched, which means my quench tank is way too small. And since hopefully future projects will be even bigger, I think I have to get rid of the problem once and for all with this. This is standing on the floor right now. So this is 150 centimeters and I think this should be plenty big enough for anything that I'll encounter in the future.
You can see the setup for this is far from ideal, and I really should have done this at night, because in the daylight the blade looks pretty much cold, when in reality it's already at quenching temperature.
Okay, I am fix und fertig. Haven't looked at the blade yet. Let's see how much of a problem we've caused. Oh, oh no. This looks like a Hot Wheels track. There's a huge band right in the middle. Hopefully I can solve that with shim tempering, but at least nothing broke off yet. Right now it's very brittle. Sometimes the pieces actually break after hardening. Before we do anything else, let's see if it even hardened or not. This sounds alright. This doesn't sound too good. So this right here is definitely not very hard, but I was also aiming for at least getting these 2/3 hardened. So this is soft. Oh, this is soft as can be, but the tip is nice. I would say up until these, maybe this one as well, is definitely an acceptable hardness. At least for a sword, files are probably around like 63 to 65 HRC. So right now these are also at about 65 HRC, but it's pretty much as brittle as glass right now, which is why we'll put it into our old friend Severin right there and bring some toughness out again by heating it up. With a knife, you would normally go to around 60 HRC, which is very hard. Your usual stainless steel kitchen knives is probably around like 55 HRC. For a sword, you would probably also aim at around 56 or something like that, so it's a little bit tougher. Okay, let's see if this still works. Hello! Now the reason why I'm testing this is because if I can fold it a little bit, I can actually fit the whole thing into a little baking oven right there, and then I don't have to torch temper this, which is a lot nicer. And now that is an 80 centimeter blade inside of a 30 centimeter oven. So Severin will keep it nice and warm for about 2 hours now. Yo, Severin, chill! He's hotboxing up the whole place again. So no matter how much brake cleaner you put on there, there's always a little bit of, maybe sometimes a lot of oil left on there. So yeah, that's what happens. And this guy is fighting for his life. Guess I'll come back later once it's not smelling so much in here. Alrighty, got the baby monitor set up just to check if Severin decides to spontaneously combust. And now I think it's time for a well-deserved coffee break. A patron of mine suggested that I should make keychain hanger sheaths for these snacker, which are now in stock, and you can also carry them as neck knives. Got it tempered a little bit. Interestingly, didn't think this would happen, but it actually got a little bit looser than before. So some of these segments were a little bit stuck together, but now you can see they are very, very free to move. Now, sadly, we've got a little bit of wiggle room, which wasn't there before. Even with this tolerance, we've got a somewhat nice flex going there. In whip mode, it's also okay, I would say. But you can definitely tell there's a lot more movement now after quenching. Let's address the elephant in the room, the bend we've got. But honestly, when heating something up, it's just bending from its own weight, just sitting in the forge. So all in all, I'm happy with this outcome. Just overcorrected a slight little bit right where the bend is. Now I'll put a little bit of heat on there. Obviously, I don't want to get it any hotter than like 200 degrees Celsius. Alrighty, it's been a few hours. Let's see how it looks. This is bending a lot more than I would hope it to bend. This still looks very crooked. You're usually supposed to, you know, put a shim in there and then put it in the oven another temper cycle, so 1 or 2 hours. Let's see if I can isolate this. Put a shim right here, overcorrect it a little bit, see if this works. I've been trying to shim temper this for a couple of times now, and it doesn't really get any better than this, which is not very good at all. I mean, the base and the spine is in a straight line. In between, there's a lot going on. But I gotta say, if I learned anything from the first whipsaw, maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead and not try to verschlimmbessern everything. Alrighty, moment of truth. Let's see if this was a good idea or if I just create more problems for myself. Hallelujah. Can you believe it actually worked how I intended it to work? That's crazy. Gotta be first for me. I know that's exactly how I had it planned, but I'm still surprised it actually worked. Alrighty, so I've been waiting so long to try this. There we have it. So it's wiggling a little bit more, but I think I already said that. Now another cool thing, in order to grind this, I have to attach the cable so we can actually have a try. Okay, just once for good measure. Oh. Now I have to tie this as small as possible. Well, I think this should be good enough. So for now I only need to lock it. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this does the job. Ah, okay, so. Okay, honestly, I'm not very confident in this working, so first try, the camera's almost done for. I cleaned up the channels, I I'm pretty much done with grinding. The last thing I have to do is put an edge on it. Put 2 hollow ground channels in there so that I can reduce the edge thickness. And I think it turned out pretty great. Let's see how much it weighs. Yeah, same as my last results. We are at 1.25 kilogram, which is very light, to be honest. If I had known it would be this light, I would have made the pommel a little bit heavier, because right now the point of balance is pretty far forward. So right here is the point of balance. Now I've noticed another problem. Now if I press the button, you can see it doesn't retract the whole thing. The last 2 segments are still here. When I hold it upside down, it just barely doesn't extend from its own weight. If I just bump this a little bit, the spring right at the end isn't strong enough to retract it all the way. My plan for extending the blade was just swinging it so that the inertia carries all of the segments outwards. With the first design, you can see the tip was supposed to be a lot heavier, but I changed it to be a point because I think thrusting will be more viable. But that also means the tip segment is now the lightest of the bunch. Let me show you the problem. So you can see that just swinging doesn't cut it because the tip is too light. It doesn't have enough inertia to actually overcome the resistance, which is at its peak when it's fully extended. One thing I could do is remove 1 roll, which means I have a stronger spring, which would hopefully fully retract all segments. Now the only way to actually extend the sword would be to either pull it by hand or get the tip stuck in something and then pulling it out would extend it. Let's try it with 5 rolls. Let's see if that makes a big difference. That's a bummer, I gotta say. Thankfully, I've got a plan C. If you remember, this segment was different than the others. Can't rotate, but you can already see it actually rotates quite a bit. And because now we've got 2 contact points, one here and one a little bit further up, basically a very big lever keeps pushing these 2 apart. I can definitely tell that this will be a very big issue once I hit something and all of the leverage is applied right here. I'm going to weld this piece on here. We're going to get rid of the weak point right here, and then because it doesn't have to retract as far, hopefully the spring will be a little bit more extended, so it has a little bit more force. Ah. Okay, out of curiosity, I tried with 4 wheels as well. Doesn't work. So do you remember what I said about quitting while you're ahead? Seems like I clearly haven't learned. Do you see that ramp right there? Yeah, that's the wrong way around. So because of all of the friction from trying out the different setups, it seems like I managed to rotate that piece 180. So yeah, quit while you're ahead. Don't verschlimmbessern everything. Come on, almost. Please, 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 please. Ha! I'm so dumb. I attached the cable before welding. It really doesn't like heat. The Dyneema rope is a plastic composite. The heat actually liquefied it, and then once it's solidified, I got a huge blob in there. Long story short, I ended up having to cut a slot into the backside. Let's just call this a weight reduction slot. Oh boy, I probably spent a solid 4 hours today just threading this stupid cable over and over again. Hopefully it works this time. Just like other projects, I'll be putting out a testing video next where we'll go in depth with what works and what doesn't work with this particular setup. But after that, I want to do things a little bit differently this time. As you can see, after that, I'll be putting out a video where I'll be electroplating replicas of the Mark II. For that video, I've partnered up with Elegoo, who provided me with their Saturn 4 Ultra, as well as a cleaning and curing station. No joke, this has been my first test print and I'm beyond excited making my own whipsaw. And then I'll be electroplating, which is basically putting a metal coating around this. So stay tuned for that. And then I'll be building the Mark II again to try and improve on the mistakes we made with this design. And then of course, I'll be testing that one as well. So the testing will be in roughly 2 weeks. And this time I thought you guys can make some suggestions of what kind of tests you want to see. So I'll give you 1 week time and then I'll film the video with all of these suggestions I have gathered from the comments. And as a special thanks to my viewers, for the first 7 days you'll get a 10% discount on my website with the code MARK2. So you can get a snacker with the new holster, or maybe you would want something bigger. That's also still up for grabs. So have a good one and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. It's not really watermelon season right now, so I had to pay 10 euros for this thing, but oh my god, it's so good.